Welcome to Game Recipe. Today we're gonna see New Frontiers, a standalone board game in Race for the Galaxy family. Best with 2 players, and I'll give 3 for the weight. To set up, put the 2 development mats in the center of the table, and place the development tiles in them in their indicated spaces with their first game size up. For the small tiles, place 1, 2, or 3 each of them depending on the number of players. Place the 7 action tiles in a row below the mats. Leave some extra space so that tiles can be slid halfway down during the game. Place the 12 colonies per player on the mat to form a supply. Likewise, 12 victory points per player in 1 and 5 victory point chips to form a supply. Put the 10 victory point chips off to one side for using final round only. Set the goods gifts and credit chips nearby to form a supply. Randomly determine the player order and place each player's disc on the priority track, keeping the first space clear. For 2-player game, place the second disc for both players. Put the wall tiles in the back and mix them thoroughly. Randomly shuffle the 8 Empire mats and deal 1 to each player. For your first game, all players use the sides with the numbers in white squares. Give each player 3 credits and the last player in turn order receive 1 more. In games with 3 or more players, players mark their colors by placing their second disc on the numbered circle. Each player receives 1 colonist from the supply to place on their pre-printed home colony. If any player's home colony has a colored halo, they put a matching good on it. And now, you are ready to play. During the game, players build galactic empires by selecting an action in turn, with only the selecting player gaining the bonus. Play continues until one of the 4 game-ending conditions is reached. After all actions for the round have been done, the player with the most victory points wins the game. In each round, the first player selects an action tile in the center, shifting it halfway down and sliding the turn of the disc halfway to the priority track's first space. Then each player does that action in order as shown on the track, with the first player receiving its bonus. After this action has been done by all players, the first player shifts the disc to occupy the first space of the track. Then, the next player in order selects an action tile which has not been selected this round yet, and shifts the disc forward halfway to the next vacant space. Each player, starting with this player and in priority track order, does this action, with the selecting player receiving its bonus. After all players are done, the selecting player shifts their disc forward fully into the next vacant space. Continue this process until every player has selected an action, and then a round is over. If the produce action was not selected this round, add 1 credit to its tile. Then shift all the selected tiles upward, slide all tornado discs back 1 space on the priority track. Then the next round begins. Let's have a look into full details for each action tiles now. Retreat into isolation. This tile has no action, and only the selecting player gains 2 credits as a bonus. Develop. Each player in order may buy 1 development that is not in their empire mat, paying credits equal to the number in the diamond shape as a cost, and the selecting player pays 1 field credit as a bonus. Place development tiles in the central area of the mats. The larger one occupies 2 spaces. Players may freely rearrange them, but cannot place any tiles in the reddish portion of the mats until all other spaces are occupied. If any player has covered more than 10 spaces, then the game will end after the completion of that round. Explore. Draw 7 wall tiles from the bag, and arrange them grey side up in the center of the area. In player order, each player picks 1 word and adds it to the explored words in the empire. After all players have done this, the selecting player picks a second word as a bonus and adds it to their empire. Then return the remaining world tiles to the bag. Please remember, explored worlds are different from settled colonies. To keep them separate from each other, start adding the worlds from the right end of your mat. Then, as you settle these worlds, flip them over to the colored side and add them to your empire, starting from the left end. If you have more than 9, return any exact explored worlds to the bag, freely choosing among all your explored worlds which to keep and which to return. Settle. The selecting player gains 1 colonist and then, each player in order either gains 2 colonists or settles 1 explored world in their empire. To settle an explored world, a player must have both sufficient credits to pay and its listed number of colonists, 1 or 2. Military world has a red circle with an outlined red number, and your military must equal or exceed to settle that world. You can get military by settled powers on home colonies, developments, and previously settled colonies. After settling a world, flip it over, put its colonist on it, and add it to your empire starting from the left end of your mat. If it has a colored halo, put a matching good on the colony. After a settle action, if any player has more than 7 colonies in their empire, including their home, or if there are 4 or fewer colonies left, the game will end after that round. Produce. The player selecting this action collects all credits on it, then every production colony that does not have a good receives a matching good. Great colonies never have goods, and a colony cannot have more than 1 good. The selecting player then, if possible, selects one of the windfall colonies without a good and produces a good on it as a bonus. Trade and consume. The selecting player gains 1 victory point as a bonus, and each player may sell 1 good, returning it to the supply for 1 to 4 credits, depending on its color. Then, if the player has some consumed powers and goods, that player must use each power in any order. If the common pool of victory point chips runs out, add the 10 victory point chips so that all players can receive the victory point chips. The game will then end after this round is complete. Send diplomatic envoys. This tile has no action. Only the selecting player gains 1 victory point chip and shifts the tone of the disc to the first position of the priority track. The game ends one of the following ways. In all cases, finish the current round and final scoring begins. Each player scored the sum of victory point chips they gained during play, victory point values of their empire's developments and colonies. The player who scores the most wins the game. There is an optional rule using the gold tiles, but I'll leave those for you to discover by yourselves.